Okay, hello, Dr. Tsultem. How are you?
Hi, Doc. I'm very well. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm talking to you from Indianapolis. We have beautiful weather today.
Indianapolis. Okay. All right, that's good. Let's see. So you're here to talk about an art exhibition, specifically something entitled Mongol Zurag. Is that how I pronounce that?
Yes, correct.
The Art of Resistance. Well, it sounds very interesting. I can't say I've ever seen anything probably like it. Give me an idea of what's in the exhibit.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to your show. Um, I am an art historian based at Indiana University, Herron School of Art and Design. I'm Edgar and Fennell Chair, International Studies here at Herron. So I'm currently having a exhibition in Venice, Italy, in conjunction with Venice Biennale. And the exhibition, as you mentioned, is titled Mongol Zurag, The Art of Resistance. And it's showing four prominent Mongolian artists. One historical artist, Orna Tsultem, and three contemporary living artists of a younger generation, Badr Zorik, Basanjev, and Urje. The exhibition is featuring the works of these artists to talk about how this style developed in Mongolia in the past century to resist socialist realism, and it continues very successful until today to resist the danger of climate crisis and environmental degradation that is happening all over the world. So I'm connecting the local aspect of tradition with the global aspects of discussion.
Well, what kind of art is this? Is this paintings or sculptures or pottery or what is it?
So these are paintings. So Mongol Zurag is a painting tradition, and Zurag translates as picture or painting. So in other words, Mongol Zurag means Mongolian painting, and it was invented as a new style in the past century because there was a concern when socialist realism became the mainstream in Mongolia as well as around the socialist countries. And artists such as Orna Tsultem, who's actually my own father, and we're celebrating his 100th anniversary this year. So this exhibition is dedicated to his centenary. Um, my father was very instrumental. In my research, I'm finding out that he was very instrumental voice in discussing the concern about Mongolian heritage and Mongolian culture, how to preserve it at the time when there was a censorship, at the time when socialist realism was dominating. And so, in discussion with other artists, they came up with a new painting style, what they called national painting style, Mongol Zurag, Mongolian painting. And that was visually very different from European paintings. It was not painted on canvas. It was not painted with oil. And visually, it was very decorative, very flat, and using Buddhist elements. Buddhism was very much prohibited during socialism, and so it was kind of visual implicit resistance to socialist realism.
I am not well versed on the history of Mongolia. Is it currently an independent country from China?
Correct. Mongolia is an independent country from China, and it's north of China. It's sandwiched, landlocked between Russia and China. And it's one of the very early democratic nations in Asia because when perestroika happened in 1989, the movement for democracy started, and socialism was really stopped in 1991. The government turned into multi-party election and government, and the economy also changed to market economy. All happened in early 1990, 1992. And since then, it's still multi-party democratic nation.
Okay, so prior to the 90s, it was a socialist country, but independent of China.
Yes, so Mongolia became independent of the last dynasty in China, the Manchurian dynasty called the Qing, and in 1911. And since then, all 20th century, until 1990, it was a socialist country. Mongolia became the second socialist country to follow Soviet Union,
Oh, I see.
interestingly.
Okay.
And it was, yeah, it was socialist country.
Okay. Has China tried to make inroads into Mongolia? I mean, do they have an interest in, I don't want to say taking over the country, but, they're making inroads about Taiwan now, that they think that they want to take it back. I mean, is there anything like that going on with Mongolia?
Mongolia politically stays in a neutral position with People's Republic of China government and in with Russian Federation. Those are two gigantic totalitarian countries, right? And Mongolian communities are outside of Mongolia, in Russia as well as in China. In fact, the northern part of China, there is a big region called Inner Mongolia, and Inner Mongolia is politically part of People's Republic of China, and Inner Mongolia is where there are some changes happening due to new policies, such as, for instance, prohibition of learning Mongolian language or cancellation of schools that teach Mongolian language, and so on and so forth.
I've seen a couple of documentaries about Mongolia, and from what I can tell, it's a lot of high desert. It's very dry. It's very cold in the winter. Uh, a lot of people live in those big tents
Right.
and have very miniature looking horses.
Yes, so Mongolia has the southern part of Mongolia has a big desert called Gobi Desert.
Gobi Desert, yeah.
Yeah, so we have two hummed camels there, right? And so you probably saw many photos or documentaries about it. But the bigger part of the country has prairies, steppes, and mountains. It is cold. It has very harsh continental weather, meaning it gets hot during summer and it's very dry. It's elevated, so above the sea level, and it gets very cold during winter. Um, and all the culture that developed in Mongolia, um, because Mongolians were always nomads, and to this day, a big population of modern day Mongolians are nomads who live with cattle herding in those steppes, in prairies. They have herding pastures during winter, then they migrate from winter pastures to seasonally to summer pastures, and so on and so forth.
Let me pivot back to your art exhibit. So, give me an idea of what the subject matter of the paintings is. Do you have any pictures that you can show us?
Sure, sure. We have many paintings. So this is an exhibition that is showing four artists, and I included a historical artist, Tsultem, because he was very important in conversation that led to inventing this new style. And during his time, it was censorship and it was socialism against which these artists were trying to voice implicitly, staying in protection of their own heritage and culture, and especially Buddhist art, which was destroyed during socialism. But in modern days, the subject matter of this artist that I'm showing, it talks about global issues such as global pandemic and environmental change and neoliberalism, which is about corrupted corporations, which unfortunately coming now to Mongolia for mining. And Mongolia is famous for deposits of gold and copper, and that mining includes environmental damage of pastures and of rivers. And so these artists are voicing their concern using that particular style to resist corruption, to resist neoliberalism, and really being visible about their critique.
Okay. Did you say you had a couple of photos? Do you want to hold them up and?
Here is the catalog of the exhibition, and if I can show some images. So, for instance, my father, in 1991, when he became aware that socialism was very destructive, and there were so many archives were not known until perestroika, he became very frustrated, and he painted in 1991 this painting. Can you see it?
Yeah. Your father painted that?
Yeah, 1991.
Oh, wow.
And it has it showing a Buddhist element. So skulls are used in Buddhist paintings to symbolize the inherent poison of man that keeps the man from enlightenment. But in this case, he used the skull to talk about his frustration about the government and the regime where he lived in socialism, believing in his doctrines, but unfortunately it was many, many lies, and it was a lot of destruction. And so he also included Mongolian traditional script, which is vertical in this painting, and the vertical script in 1944 was replaced with a Cyrillic Russian script. And so he intentionally included traditional vertical script in this painting, also kind of to comment on the socialist past, which discouraged learning of history and
Who was,
tradition.
sorry, who was that? Was that Joseph Stalin?
Yes, correct.
And who was the other one? Looked like Winston Churchill.
No, it was Joseph Stalin, but the beginning of socialism in Russia was Lenin, right?
Oh, that's
Vladimir Lenin.
Lenin. Okay. All
Right,
right.
right. So here's another painting by a contemporary artist,
Oh,
um,
wow.
and
Yeah.
it uses again this kind of element of multi-armed figure, and the figure is in suits, referencing his critique of this corporate business people who are concerned about their wealth instead of helping the environment. They are destroying the environment, and they're becoming evil in the course of doing so.
We've got time. We've just got about a minute and a half. So show us one more.
Mm-hmm. So here we have another painting by the artist Basanjo, where he, in 2009, he depicted the corporate critique in this metaphor of this man in the center, based on the figures, multi-armed figures of Buddhist paintings. But here is the critique of the corporate neoliberalism, corrupted government, where the men are becoming monsters, and they're fighting with each other. And in this painting, also there are included the Russian script, which talks about truth today, but truth today is very much about the destruction of environment and corporations. And traditional script in this painting talks about the spirits of the landscape of rivers and mountains are coming out, making themselves visible, and they appealing to this powerful people who save our mountains, save our rivers from destruction.
Okay.
So,
Wow. Very interesting. We are out of time. We've got to wind this down. So I just want to recap that currently the exhibit is in Venice, Italy. Is it going to come to the United States?
So I would really like to bring it to United States, and I really hope that these times when the cultural representation is so important, the word DI became really a buzzword we use in everyday lives and even in politics. But it is the time for us to learn and respect cultures and communities who are not visible, who are marginalized and underrepresented in our museums, in our galleries in this country. So I really hope that the museums will open the door for the countries and cultures that are very little known, such as Mongolia, and they will help to bring these artists to this country. So I'm working on a possibility of bringing this exhibition from Venice to United States, and especially to museums, which will be open enough to show artists and give them the voice that they need.
Well, Dr. Tsultem, we do have to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on the show. The last question, do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, if anyone is interested to learn more about Mongolian art, I have a website, Art Mongolia. So it's ARTMongolia.org, O-R-G. So Art Mongolia, one word, .org, where you can find many resources, publications, links to conversations, videos, and so on and so forth.
Well, thank you again for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you. Best of luck with the exhibit, and I hope you get to bring it to the United States.
Thank you so much, Doug.